My name is Hannah. I suddenly got some surprising news from my mom, Poppy. My grandfather, Simon, was going to remarry. I had heard that my grandparents had divorced around the time my mom had turned 18. I had never seen him before, but this time wasn't the first time he had remarried either. After he divorced with my grandmother, he remarried 3 more times. I did meet the last 2 women he married. They wouldn't say exactly why they were getting divorced, but it seemed like there were issues with how he treated the women. He was turning 60 this year, so I thought he would have settled down at this point. But it seems like it's his fiancée who's pushing for the wedding so much. My mom hasn't told me much about his fiancée yet, but a few days later, he suddenly reached out to her. "Would you meet the woman that I want to marry?" is what he said, much to my mother's surprise. I live alone right now, but I go to visit my mom every once in a while, and that's when she told me. He's already 60. If he wants to get married, he can do whatever he wants. He asked me to meet them every time he finds somebody. I can't really speak freely when I meet them either. Things are a bit complicated. He hasn't talked to my mother at all either. And now he's making me meet her, is what she told me. "You'll be family once they get married. Isn't it normal to meet?" I asked her. And she said, "Well, I guess so, but the thing is, all of the women he's been with after my mom, they never thought of me as their daughter. It's not like I really saw them as my mother either. More like my father's wife. And he's remarried and divorced so many times. I told him I'm a bit tired of meeting them every time. It seems like this time his fiancé wants to meet me, though." I thought maybe her wanting to meet is a good sign. That must mean she'll be nice, right? "Since she says she wants to meet you, you should give it a try. I can come with you." She thought a little after hearing me say that, and said, "You can come if you want, but won't it be boring for you? I'll talk to my father about it." She wasn't wrong. It's not something I was particularly interested in, and I'm not close at all with my grandfather either. But something like this doesn't happen often, so I thought it'd be good to join. I was really looking forward to the meeting, wondering what kind of person she is. A few days later, we finally went to meet up with them, but things didn't exactly go the way I imagined. I met up with my mom first, and together we went to my grandfather's house. My mom felt more comfortable meeting there than outside, which is why we were meeting there. I always get nervous at these meetings. Too much pressure. It makes sense. You're about to meet the woman your father will marry. Anyone would be nervous. What if you guys end up not liking each other? Her nervousness started to rub off on me a little. We continued on to my grandfather's house and rang the doorbell once we arrived. When the door opened, it wasn't my grandfather at the door, though. "Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Isla. You must be Simon's daughter and granddaughter." Isla was really young. So young that me and my mom were at a loss for words. I stood wide-eyed looking at a woman around my age. My mom was even more in shock. Nice to meet you. We came to meet my father's fiancé. Are you his fiancé's daughter?" It would make sense for her to be the fiancé's daughter, but I had a hunch that wasn't the case, unfortunately. "Huh? No, that's not it. I'm Simon's fiancé." She burst into laughter. My mom was doing her best to keep cool. Her lips were pursed, putting in a lot of effort to hide her feelings. Of course she'd be surprised, seeing her father engaged to someone the same age as her daughter. If I would marry someone my grandfather's age, their family would be surprised as well. They have to be around 40 years apart. Marrying someone older than your parents is crazy. I couldn't imagine being in her shoes. She wasn't trying to attack Isla or anything. She was just having some trouble wrapping her head around the situation. We were still standing there, stiff from Isla's words. "Rather than talking out here, let's go inside. Simon's waiting," she said, like she was inviting us into her own house, leading us inside. We couldn't just sit in the entryway anymore, so we went in, following Isla. We came into the living room and saw my grandfather sitting on the couch. "Oh, I see you finally came," he said, calling out to us. I was still a bit confused at the whole situation. Introducing a girl 40 years younger than him to his family. I thought he would be a bit more nervous, but he greeted us like everything was normal. I wondered if maybe we were the ones seeing things wrong. I looked at my mom, her mouth agape, and I felt the same way on the inside. What do you mean we finally came? What's going on here? It seems she couldn't take his nonchalance about the situation any longer, and her actions confirmed that. But my grandfather didn't seem to understand what she meant. What are you talking about? I just called you to meet and chat a bit with my fiancé. This seemed to embarrass my mom. Yes, that is what you said, but that's not what I mean. How old is Isla anyways? She looks to be about the same age as Hannah. You're really going to marry her? She asked him a lot more directly this time, but Isla answered her instead. Calm down. How old I am isn't what's important. There's no law saying you can't marry someone younger than you, right? She wasn't wrong, I thought, but something still felt odd here. She was a lot different from the other women my grandfather married before. They were usually the more modest type. Isla seemed more easygoing, and she talked and carried herself more like she was younger than me. You're right, it's not illegal. I was just very surprised at your age difference. I'm sorry for offending you. He's my family, so I was just a bit worried for him, is what she said to Isla. I understood what she meant. My grandfather also tried to reassure her. She is a lot different from my previous partners, so I can understand why you'd be surprised. It's been a few decades since I dated somebody this young, but life is full of surprises. He seemed content with his answer, like he explained everything clearly. But my mother was still not convinced. I get that, but this was still beyond anything I could expect. By the way, I heard it was her who's pushing for the wedding to happen. Is that true? Mom looked at Isla and her father for an answer. Yep, that's right. I want to marry Simon. If I didn't, I wouldn't meet his family like this. I wanted you guys to know I exist. Isla was still talking about everything so casually. I was fine with just dating, but Isla really wanted to get married, he said, still looking really pleased with himself. Mom was still doubtful about the whole situation. I'm gonna take this chance to ask you clearly. Things look really good for my father. He gets to marry a young, pretty girl like you, but what do you gain from this? It doesn't look like you really love him. I was really surprised that you wanted to meet us, honestly. She was really blunt with her opinion on the marriage, and Isla laughed, seeming to find it funny. I have plenty to gain from this. If we're both happy and having fun, isn't that good? We've got something only we can understand. Also, Simon said that he always makes you meet the people he marries, but you never complain. Does that mean you're against us marrying? Isla seemed to be provoking her, and it was making her annoyed. It would be really bad if they started to fight, so I decided to step in. Mom is just worried about her father, right? Let's let them speak alone for a minute. You can talk with me, Isla. We're close in age, so it should be more comfortable, right? And with that, I forced us into pairs. Honestly, I was a bit uncomfortable being alone with Isla, but it was the only way I could calm things down. My mom and grandfather agreed that it was a good idea. Isla and I walked around the neighborhood while talking. There was a bit of an awkward silence at first, but I decided to ask Isla a few questions to see what she was really trying to do here. So, what made you attracted to my grandfather? I asked her. Isla burst out laughing at my question. I'm not attracted to him. Her response really confused me. But you just told my mom. Isla stopped me mid-sentence. I said I had something to gain from this. I never said I was attracted to him. With this, she began saying her true intentions. Then why did you want to marry him? I nervously asked her. She gave me a look like the answer was obvious and said, I'm marrying him for the money, of course. Why else would I marry someone that old? It should be obvious without me saying it. But your mom kept pretending not to notice at all the while trying to protect his money as hard as she could. This whole situation kept getting crazier and crazier. She was making a big mistake. There was one thing I was curious about now. What made you think my grandfather has money? Isn't it obvious when you see his house? And he's got a watch from a really big brand name. He just gives off that feeling. He's gotta be rich. And I heard some of his relatives saying he's got money too. I thought I'd get married and take his inheritance. And Simon, he's grateful he gets to spend time with a young, pretty girl. I'm not really interested in anything else but the money. So I'll be counting on you guys once he needs nursing. Isla was so confident she was right, I couldn't stop myself from laughing. I'm sorry to tell you, but your fantasy is a bit off from the truth. Our family doesn't have any money. Isla froze up, her smile disappearing in an instant. What? You guys are poor? I don't believe that. You just want the inheritance for yourself. Stop lying. I felt a little weird seeing her get angry. I'm not lying, but I understand how you could get the wrong idea from the house and his things. It's true that he did inherit a lot of money, but he's drowning in debt now. He blew his whole inheritance on gambling. Isla had a look of disbelief on her face. She scowled at me. That has to be a lie. I've never seen him gambling even once, she said, frantically denying everything. His relatives invested their money and are well off, but my grandfather took loans to gamble even more after he lost his money. He's quit gambling at this point, though. My mother spent years convincing him, telling him he'll put his children and grandchildren in debt if he kept it up. Isla was in despair. So, you're saying his house is the only thing he's got left? What about his watch and other things? The house was given to him by another relative. They thought it would look bad if they had someone homeless in the family. My grandfather somehow pays the electric and water bills, but the watch was a gift from one of his wives. My mom said they all left him because of his gambling problem. I don't know what really happened, though. Then, if I get married, I'll have a load of debt handed off to me? I spent all this time making him trust me to the point where even his own family can't convince him otherwise. I did everything he wanted, and he tricked me like this? Isla finally understood her situation. If you're after someone's money, you should make sure they actually have any first, I thought. And my grandfather never said anything to her either. With that, me and Isla returned back to the house. Mom and my grandfather were still talking, but it wouldn't lead to anything, so I interrupted them. Hey, me and Isla had a talk about a few things, and I think Grandpa should probably call off the wedding. Isla joined in on the conversation, interrupting me. You lied to me? You made me think you were rich. I'm done. I'm calling the wedding off. There's no way I'm marrying a poor old guy, she screamed, absolutely furious. My mom looked like she had no idea what was going on, but my grandfather was completely calm. He said something ridiculous, but with a completely calm tone. I knew you were only after my money. There's no other reason a cute, innocent young girl working in the night would get with an old geezer like me, but I wasn't planning on getting used to that. You gave me a lot of good memories. He saw through her right from the start. Now his side of the story's coming out. I was shocked to hear his confession. Hearing how him and Isla met was really like him, but still crazy nonetheless. Isla was getting angrier and angrier. You're the worst. You wasted my time. Pretending to be rich like that, I thought you were just stingy. I tried so hard because I thought that would change after we married. She blamed him, completely ignoring how she was using him as well. My grandfather replied, I thought I would end things a bit after you met my daughter. I never was going to marry you from the start, but even if I told you I wasn't rich, I don't think you would have believed me. I didn't expect my granddaughter would get dragged into things, though. I was thinking about how I should make you realize, but it seems my granddaughter did it for me." After hearing this, my mother started to understand what happened. Isla complained more after that, but once she realized nothing more would come of it, she said, "I hope you live the rest of your life sad and alone." With that, she stomped out of the house. I was glad things were over. Mom immediately started lecturing my grandfather. I'm not so sure, but it seems like he's been through things like this before. In some way, it was a good lesson for Isla. My grandfather really is kind of scary in a way. What else is he hiding behind that cheery face of his? Maybe I shouldn't meet up with him alone. My mom said to him, "I won't look after you if you do something like that again. You'll be all on your own, just like Isla said." She scolded him, and he apologized to her. "I promise this will be the last time something like this happens." It was fun at first, but it got really tiring. Mom was getting tired of lecturing him, and our meeting was over. On the way home, I calmed her down. "I'm really glad you came along. I don't think I could have dealt with this alone," she told me. The meeting went nothing like I expected it would, but I feel like it was a good experience for me.